overview. Giovanni Partita, ENA 3, Joliet Central. Brainstorming, future projects, and research. I then create a list for future project to complete throughout the semester. I begin by researching through Mr. West's portfolio with his classes and clubs he runs, adding the LED sign project to my list of potential ideas. I then add more such ideas, such as the image listed below, being a skull holder project, combining something I like, something I need, later changing both in small ways. After researching, I then began briefly sketching an outline of what I would want. Afterwards, I created a base design I liked, though it didn't come without its issues. I first had to reconnect the printer to my computer, watching a video provided how to do so. Though once done, I printed a preview of my design, which ended up being too tall, so I went back, cut it out 3/8 of an inch, which fit perfectly afterwards. Next, I cut out the design of my preview, saw it was good within the LED stand, went over to Mr. West's front computer through which I opened my file and attached my assignment. With Mr. West's help, we placed my design within the laser cutter, which when starting to cut, we found out that the settings were off within the laser cutter, though the next day, Mr. West informed me that he had gotten settings from another teacher and redid the cutting of my design. Overall, while this wasn't the flashiest or hardest design, it did not come without its challenges. I then began researching on skull shapes made in Inventor on YouTube and Google, which I found none, though which I had to improvise, bringing up the skull image shown, which I got the idea to transform my project into the Day of the Dead theme. Making a quick sketch of dimensions of how the base would look, I felt good and began modeling in Inventor. Through Inventor, I made a square base, added holes, fillets, made a sketch of a skull on the side, mirroring it over. Afterwards, I added more of the theme with facial art, text of the theme, also a guitar, which was originally with a rose, but I had to cut back for the printer's sake. While the dimensions and measurements were good, I had to receive an A-size sheet from my classmate Brandon due to not having it saved on my Google Drive saved folder. After printing, I dropped my model in Bamboo, added tree supports, then get the USB, plugging the chip in my computer, grabbing my model, and inserting it into the 3D printer. Afterwards, cleaning the 3D printer board and taking off tree supports. This was definitely a fun experience using Inventor, adding in ideas from peers, and getting to use the new 3D printer for the first time. I am overall happy with this final result. I began by receiving the lamplight kit from Mr. West, which he told us we could find potential ideas from Bamboo with other products such as the lamplight kit, through which I found a few I liked, wanting to create a mix of them. I then began by using the dial caliber to create a sketch of my light head and what was to be my lamp kit body, adding in needed dimensions along the way, with such dimensions carrying them over later to Inventor to create my 3D model of my design. I then brought my sketches to Inventor, through which I used many extrusions and cuts for my lamp shape, cord for light, and holes for a bolt in the back of my lamp light head, later modeling a bolt and wing nut for such assembly. Following modeling, I began inserting such models into an assembly, grounding the lamp body, and using rotational joints to replicate the rotation of my lamp head. Later, I added a bolt and wing nut with rotation joints as well. Surprisingly, I found much interference with the body and head of my lamp, which I cut the body model at an angle to have no interferences. I also needed to redimension my holes due to having a too small width. Lastly, I had to go to the store and buy a bolt and wing nut that would fit. I then transferred my assembly over and began separating each part from my assembly. I then went to AutoCAD creating a circle of my lamp head, finding different models I liked, inserting them through images, and using spline line tool to hatch to create such models. One of the last things I did was my working drawings. I began by inserting the assembly of my lamp as the front page with a front and back angled view. Next, I inserted my exploded assembly with an angled view with balloons off of each part numbering them. I then create a table of my list of parts with their names, mass, material, and amount of each part. Lastly, I added each part including light head, light, lamp base, bolt, and wing nut, giving them their dimensions, center marks, and center lines. Making sure I use a section view cut on the front view, getting a top and right side of each part, and in the corner a shaded view of the part and its own size label if needed. Later, printing out a B-size of each part, folding it, and turning in to meet Mr. West to check. Realizing mistakes I made, I went back to Inventor, relocating my holes to be top to bottom with the same distance from the center as it was before, with this connecting my top hole to my cord hole, which gave room for such wires to be put through the lamp head. Finally, expanding the dimension of my cord hole for a better fit for such cord. I then inserted my project into Bamboo, adding tree supports and its material. Afterwards, I retrieved the USB and chip from my 3D printer, inserting it into my computer and retrieving my project. Inserting my project into the 3D printer and running test prints, which came back during advisory to find out that such dimensions were a little too small for my light head, in which I ran more prints until the dimensions fit perfectly for my light head, repeating the previous process and retrieving my final product. This project had multiple challenges, including finding a proper wing nut and bolt, fixing interferences with such assemblies, and running multiple test prints due to having a dimension that was off. That being said, I really enjoyed creating this product and its final result. Next, I began brainstorming over new ideas I could work on, getting inspiration from Mr. West's front desk, which I found a nameplate which I recognized I could replicate and come up with the idea to create nameplates for my teachers. Next, I began getting dimensions down from the face of the nameplate and legs to use such dimensions later to model my design in AutoCAD. After sketching, I opened AutoCAD, modeling the face of the nameplates with dimensions given, and using the copy tool to create 8 other face nameplates. Next, I retrieved all the names I would use, inserting them, changing their size and text type to fit the other designs. Lastly, I retrieved images I found off the internet I felt connected with each person, inserting them into AutoCAD and shading them to be able to see through using spline later. With such images inserted and shaded, I then began to use the spline line tool, straight lines, and angled lines to create the outlines for my images, afterwards deleting the images once fully outlined. Lastly, I used the hatch tool to engrave the following white areas to add a bit of depth. Once I completed my work within AutoCAD, I then began by turning on the laser cutter, retrieving wood material to use within the laser cutter, leveling the laser cutter, and aligning the laser cutter with the edge. I then used Mr. West's front computer to insert my project within the laser cutter, with my classmate Brandon's help setting up the laser cutter. With the laser cutter now set up, I use it to cut and engrave both the front nameplates and legs along with it. After receiving my parts from the laser cutter, I use the provided glue to assemble my nameplates and legs, Q-tips to clean any excess glue, and books to hold such nameplates and legs in the right position. After completing my nameplates, I later handed out all the nameplates to each teacher, taking pictures for documentation along the way. Most of the pictures being of my teachers, besides one of me and one of my dog. I would like to thank Mr. West for answering questions I had and providing materials I used through the semester. I would also like to thank Brandon for assisting me with questions as well as helping me set up the 3D printer and laser cutter. Lastly, I would like to thank you for watching. Goodbye.